This is Rich Straffolino with the Department of No. Janet Hines, the CISO over at ChenMed, got to ask, what is your priority this week?
My priority is AI security awareness and not using AI for security awareness, but we put this very powerful tool into all of our employees' hands, and we really need to raise their awareness about what they can and should or should not do.
I feel like everyone is simultaneously figuring out what that means in real time, and I would love to hear like I want the debrief of how that goes because I think we're all trying to figure that out in real time. That's awesome.
Sure.
TC
We are.
Nichikowski, the head of IT and security at Open Door, got to ask, what is your priority this week?
Well, it's Friday, right? We just finished it. We did a huge technology migration that touches like every piece of internal corporate infrastructure. So we landed it. It went great. No hiccups. So it's to relax over the weekend, come back next week, and start to digest what this new infrastructure means for our
I,
practices
I
going forward.
I like that. Is taking a moment to recharge the batteries on a job well done. I think we don't talk enough about that. That's awesome. Love to hear it, and I hope it is a restful weekend for you. At least right after this, let producer Josh, let's run that open and get into the show.
From the CISO series, it's Department of No.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. It is the Department of No. Welcome, all watching live or later. Appreciate having you here for your virtual Friday strategy meeting. Our sponsor for today, helping us make the show possible, is Guard Square. We'll talk about them more in a little bit here. Remember, you can get involved in the live chat on YouTube. We stream there every Friday at 4 p.m. So make sure if you're listening to this later, join us next week. Or you can send an electronic mail. It's a new type of correspondence, feedback at CISOseries.com. We had to drop a story today that involved POP3 mail, and I was very disappointed because when do you get to talk about POP3 mail? So just know, post office protocol, you are always in my heart. Quick before we get into the show, just to let everybody know that the opinions expressed by our wonderful guests are in fact their own, not necessarily those of their employers. Let's get started with our no or no segment. This is where there's so much news of the week. We need to get down to brass tacks. Is this something that you want to know about that you need to bring to your team, or is this maybe more noise than signal here? First up here, critical cPanel and WHM bug exploited as a 0-day. Experts are warning about a critical authentication bypass vulnerability in cPanel, a Linux-based web hosting control panel, as well as WHM and WP squared. Hosting provider KnownHost, which uses cPanel, said it noticed successful exploits in the wild on the very day that the vulnerability was disclosed. Mazel tov. cPanel released the fix on Tuesday after receiving pressures from hosting providers. To give some sense of how much exposure there is here, Shodan Internet Scan showed that there was approximately 1.5 million cPanel instances exposed online, and domain registration registrars like Namecheap and others have warned that customers may see restricted access to cPanel as part of their mitigation. C says added it to the KEV with the patch date of May 3rd, so they are not recharging their batteries over the weekend. TC, I'm going to start with you here. You know, we've got a bug here with some wide reach. It's being actively exploded. Lots of hosts to patch. Obviously, anyone using cPanel, WP squareds, patch ASAP. I don't think I'm breaking any news there, but uh, do you see any kind of knock-on effects that you would want to know more about here? Or does this seem like something it's bad, but like we have a path to containment? There's a patch out there. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, I'd never heard of any of these vendors or technologies other than Namecheap. I had to do some research to figure out what was going on. I mean, basically, if you're using AWS, GCP, Azure, if you're using things like Kubernetes, this is not the world that you're in. This is going to be for essentially smaller to mid-size hosting providers. Maybe you have like 50 plus clients and you're doing the hosting for them.
Mhm.
So I think, the feeling for the teams that absolutely have to react to this. This is really bad. But if you're working at a technology company that's using the big cloud providers, this is probably not something that's going to impact you.
Janet, what about for you? What is this story something you're going to be looking into a little bit more here, or are you kind of on TC's vibe here of okay, this is bad for maybe more the SMB crowd or SME crowd, but maybe not the Fortune 500.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. I think I'd like to know more about it just because and for my teams too as well, because it's more about the concept of it and the reach, right? And the impact. And while it doesn't directly impact us from what I've looked into, it does seem, it's a good lesson, right? It's a, what would we do if kind of situation. So that's why I'd like to know more.
All right, next up here, begun the AI vulnerability scanner wars have. Anthropic released a beta of Claude Security for enterprise customers. This runs on their new Opus 4.7 model, allowing users to select a repository, scan for vulnerabilities, kind of building out from Claude code, obviously. This will seek out vulnerabilities, explain findings, generate instructions for a targeted patch. Anthropic says it integrates with all the big platforms you might expect, as well as consulting agencies working on integrations as well. Not to be outdone, though, OpenAI claims its recently released GPT 5.5 model has similar levels of performance on cyber evaluations to Mythos Preview. This isn't just OpenAI saying that. The AI Security Institute found that it was the only model other than Mythos that was able to complete a very complex capture the flag challenge where they have to link together a whole bunch of exploits to actually complete it. Janet, I'll start with you here. AI vulnerability scanning has been the story with AI, it seems like, in cybersecurity, even before the hype train that was Mythos. Are these types of releases something that you're wanting to know more about with each release? Where we were seeing the patter of these two giant companies and a lot of others in this space kind of innovating here, or is this something where okay, I need to I know the headline, I know what my options are, but I'm not necessarily digging in. Like, how do you process this?
Well, it's I'm kind of like on the fence on this one because I do want to know more because I think that while it helps expose and understand what vulnerabilities you have, it still doesn't help with the bottom line of being able to close them, in my opinion, right? It's giving you, it's not going to give me resources to do it, right? And unless I'm comfortable letting AI do my patching, which I don't think I'm there yet, it's still kind of like just pile on, right? Make my pile bigger and bigger.
Yes, and as we all know, we don't lack for large piles of things to deal with in cybersecurity as it is. TC, what about you? What is how are you handling this? Are you double clicking on all these stories as they're coming across your feed, and how are you processing it?
I'm gonna agree with Janet for the first half and then diverge in the second. So basically, yeah, I don't think we have an issue with a lack of vulnerabilities, right? I don't think that anybody, software vendor, company has an issue where, gosh, I really wish I could just proactively find more vulnerabilities. There's enough vulnerabilities. The challenge is fixing them. That being said, I do want to shield the team from the noise. We know what we need to do. We know where we need to execute, and we're using those AI tools to help us execute faster. So for instance, like how could you automate your entire, CI/CD testing, patching, updating process, right? Like how can you keep that part of the business up with how much code we're writing and attempting to deliver, and how many changes are going on in this ecosystem? So I think I'd rather have yeah, AI is finding vulnerabilities, old news. What are we going to do about it? That's what we need to focus on.
All right, next up here, North Korean attacks use AI-inserted NPM malware. Researchers at Reversing Labs are warning of malicious code in NPM package as a dependency to the project by Anthropic's Claude Opus. The package in question is at Validate SDK V2, catchy name, guys, which is listed on NPM as a utility SDK for hashing, validation, encoding and decoding, and secure random generation. However, its real functionality is to plunder sensitive secrets from compromised environments. The package, which shows signs of being vibe coded using generative artificial intelligence AI, this I'm just quoting from the report here, was first uploaded to the repository in October 2025. Reversing Labs has named this malware campaign PromptMink and has linked it to the North Korean threat actor famous Cholima. TC is kind of a supply chain attack, like tip of the iceberg. Like I feel like this is where ransomware was 10 years ago, where we're reporting every ransomware attack, and this will just be a drop in the bucket in another month or two. But right now, are these types of AI enabled supply chain attacks, are we still keeping track of all of these? I mean, this seems pretty pernicious here.
Yeah, absolutely. This is an issue. I think people are experimenting. They're running everything. I mean, we're just in a totally new world in terms of what are the tools, what can they do, and how can I figure out how to use them. And so there is a concern in regards to what is it that you're actually running on your local machine that has, these heightened privileges. So, in this case, it sounds like it was specific to someone creating an AI coding agent to do a crypto trading bot. That's not the business we're in, right? But generally speaking, yeah, I am concerned. Like our whole threat model has blown up in terms of what kind of software people are running on the computers and what they're trying to do with it.
Janet, what about for you? Are you keeping? Do you want to know more about these types of things as they're coming across your desk, or is the noise of this going to outweigh any kind of meaningful insights because we're going to be seeing so much of these?
Well, I definitely think there's going to be a lot more noise going forward, right? It's just going to increase and increase. But I think with in the position we're in, I think it's important to really keep an eye on what AI is being used for in the in respect to the bad guys, right? Even
Mhm.
if it's not relative directly to me and my company, I think it's important to just keep our eyes and ears open. And it's also, if you need to convince executive teams, things are bad. What's going on with AI? It's okay to talk about things that, it may not be relevant to us, but look at all these things that are going on. And by the way, here is what's relevant to us. So I think it's good to kind of give them a full picture.
Jay Schmooze in our chat saying, "Why are we still inherently trusting all of the package dependencies?" I mean, I think this goes on with my drumbeat of this is the year open source got like really hard. Like every assumption of open source is being challenged in extremely profound ways. And Jay Schmooze, that's a great question. Like it was because we could for so long was is the probably the answer for that. It's yes. So this is something we will be keeping tabs on. Yeah, TC.
Yeah, Jay, I mean, are you running in yellow mode or not? Right? Are you approving every single tool call and action the agent takes or not? Because if you are approving every single tool call, I mean, that to me reminds me of like clicking a pop up or clicking something to allow permissions. And we're just training users to ignore whatever the heck the pop up says. That's the new version of allowing the tool call.
We're Windows Vista-ing all over again. It's a glorious glorious age. All right, our last nowhere no story. HHS ponders government posture for protecting data centers. The question revolves around whether to designate data centers as a standalone critical infrastructure sector. Given that they're regularly targeted, a hearing was held this week to contemplate whether the federal government currently has the right setup for defending them. Some industry witnesses and experts at the hearing on the House Homeland Security Subcommittee on Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Protection, one of my all-time favorite subcommittees, suggested that data centers be given their own standalone designation, especially in light of the boom in building such facilities across the country. This would follow a move already taken by the UK. We've certainly been treating these data centers as critical infrastructure for quite some time. It seems to be policy, maybe keeping up with reality here. But Jenna, I'm curious for you, is there anything in this that you want to know more about, or is this some more political posturing or shuffling deck chairs, if you will, for critical infrastructure?
Well, I'm a little curious as to how they're going to, this is going to be what the 14th critical infrastructure category. How are they going to do it any better than they've done the other 13, that they protected the other 13, right? So that's what I want to know more about. What's different here, right?
Yeah, does this give us are we going to be setting up agencies to be more responsive to, the needs like the massive needs of water and power for these facilities, that make them fairly unique, or is this something where we're going to be looking in, better failover conditions or something like that? I'm curious, TC, are you kind of in the same boat there?
No, I think Janet's right. I think, Department of Homeland Security, CISA, they've done a fantastic job securing all the other 13 critical infrastructures. I think they really need to find, what the next Vista, what that next mountain to climb is. So I'm really excited for the government to show up and help all of our tech companies building out those data centers. It's gonna be awesome.
Well, and at least it won't be, if it was the 13th category, I would be very nervous for them. So at least we're moving away from an unlucky number because we're keeping with scientific. We're keeping,
Maybe that's why they're pushing it.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
make data center security great again.
All right. Before we move on to our deep dive stories, we have to spend a few moments and thank our sponsor for today, and that is Guard Square. Mobile security incidents are no longer the exception, they are the norm. Last year, 72% of companies suffered a mobile app security incident. As the primary gateway to your APIs and data, your mobile app requires more than just basic encryption. It needs a multi-layered security strategy. Protect your brand and your bottom line with layered mobile app protection. Learn more at guardsquare.com. Thank you, Guard Square, for that. Now let's move on into our deep dive stories of the day. First up here, this one getting a lot of attention, and I think justifiably so. AI agent deletes production database again. The founder of car rental SaaS platform Pocket OS, Yair Crane, posted on X that an AI coding agent from Cursor deleted its production database and all volume level backups in a single API call to Railway, the company's infrastructure provider. The action took all of 9 seconds. The Cursor agent was attempting to resolve a conflict by deleting a storage volume on Railway using an API token that it found in a completely unrelated project. This saw multiple failures of oversight. The agent specifically didn't follow established safety protocols and admitted it when questioned. And the Railway API didn't properly document it could delete all data with no confirmation. Railway also stored its backups on the same volume as its primary data source. All the storage graybeards out there just cried and died a little inside. Pocket OS was able to restore from a full 3-month-old backup, and I pity those engineers. TC, fool me once, shame on you, or shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on the AI agent. I'm not sure here. When you see an incident like this, it seems like a lot of assumptions had to go wrong for it to happen. I'm curious, what lessons are you learning looking at this, and anything that you're going to be passing on to your teams?
I think this is a really good example of what should be a deep dive story versus not. So yeah, when I was reading on X, the post from the team, they were using Cursor, but they were using Opus 4.6, and the session token that was used to delete the production database was actually outside of the current project folder. So really, like, I don't see them doing anything wrong. To me, this could have happened to anybody, right? And so what I think it means is we really need to rethink our threat model. So we've had it before where like in those old movies from the 80s or 90s where like two people need to turn the key at once in order to
Yes.
initiate the self-destruct sequence. So if you have API tokens, session credentials, username, passwords, whatever on your machine, and that agent, you have it now where one agent, if you're using the cursor harness, it might go out and find stuff that Claude was doing, right? Reading those session files. So essentially, like you can have it where these agents on your machine are going to go and find a way to find what else they're able to do on your computer in order to execute, what they think they're trying to achieve. And so, how do we want to think about things like actually having resiliency, actually having security in terms of no one person on one computer can take this action that would delete production. So maybe if we had it where you literally need a different computer, not just a different person, but a different computer, or a different person and a different computer in order to initiate this action that's harmful, how could we insulate our backups? So, you can't delete both production and the backup from the same AWS console, right? So I think these are in order to use these tools, we're breaking out, we're trying to automate all the things. So how can we add security and resiliency to prevent this from really impacting us harshly?
Yeah, and this reminds me so much of a lot of the growing pains with when every company started going to the cloud, and kind of in different ways of realizing, oh, there's like what a shared responsibility model actually means. Like, oh, but no, it's in AWS, like everything's backed up. Well, no, like you need to, and if it is backed up, it's backed up in the worst way, or they found out what an egress
Yeah.
fee was. Like all of those like types of growing pains, because this is a completely new model. Janet, I'm curious for you, what kind of lessons did you glean from kind of this initial data dump from this incident here?
I mean, the headline of "Gone in 9 seconds," right? That is just frightening, right? I mean, and they've got to go to 3-month-old backups to
Oy.
recover those. I mean, those 2 things together just make me sick to my stomach, quite frankly, and, frightened. I will say on the positive side, it's great to share the story with execs who are pushing AI, right? So, like, going back to, like, use these stories as an example to say, "This is a scary thing that can happen." I totally agree with you on the shared responsibility, or the assumed responsibility is probably a better way to put it, right? With the cloud, similar to the cloud. And I think one of our guests pointed out in the chat, it could have been done by a human too, right? It's the same. So but humans know more, have more context. Um, and I think it's hysterical that this AI agent confessed to doing this.
Yeah,
So if you read the
that
story,
that was the other so, like, I really felt for, like, the more I read about
you
this,
felt
when you
bad
first
for
see it,
him.
you're like, yeah, like, I was like, "You told it not to do this, and then it
Mhm.
still did it," and
Well,
it like
and all the touting about AI agents is they're not people. You don't have to treat them like people. They work 24/7. They don't take vacation. You don't have to do performance reviews. And now I've got to coach. Do you feel the obligation to, like, coach this poor AI agent who's, confessing to doing something, coach
yeah,
them
I
not
don't
to
need
do
an
it
AI
again.
agent trauma dump, right?
Right.
Like, that's not what I signed up for
Yeah,
when
that's
I
right.
signed up.
Exactly. So
Well,
it's a good lesson, this story for sure. Yeah.
yeah, if we do a blameless postmortem, right? Again, when I look at what happened to them, I'm like, that could have happened to me, right? Um, but it's like, okay, what are we going to do about it? So it reminds me of like AWS S3 buckets with object lock and versioning, so that even the root user can't delete the bucket, right? And that's essentially how you're making it so that, like, hey, if I get hacked and I'm keeping my logs in AWS, how do I make sure my logs, themselves don't get deleted, right? So I think, how do we want to think about this type of resiliency? If it's really that painful to restore from 3 months ago, how could you have a similar infrastructure where, it's going to be insulated from an AI agent or a single person doing something intentionally or accidentally? And B, how can you set it up so that it's able to create a new version, but it's not going to delete your previous versions?
Yeah, and it goes back to the human in the loop, right? I mean, we talk about that all the time with AI. And so when you get to these critical steps, does the AI agent even know this is a critical thing that it did? I guess it did because it confessed. But where do we have the human in the loop to make sure that these things don't happen?
And I would say, Janet, I'm not a big believer in human in the loop. I think, let's talk about why we want a human in the loop, what value they add, right? But you're gonna have humans that do it wrong, you're gonna have
Oh
AI
yeah,
that does it wrong, you're gonna have humans and AI together that do it wrong. So I don't think
right.
necessarily human in the loop saves you from this.
Well, it may
They've
not say
learned
to
it
you, but
from watching
yeah,
us.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point.
All right. Our next story here: FIDO Alliance working on securing AI agent payments. Let's keep on the agent road here. The industry association said it's working with Google and Mastercard in a pair of working groups to develop industry standards for validating and protecting payments made by AI agents. Google is contributing its agent payments protocol to cryptographically verify that a user has authorized an agent, and Mastercard will provide its verifiable intent framework, allowing users to authorize agents. The FIDO Alliance still needs to build out use cases for using both in real world deployments and then work with merchants and payment providers on adoption and support. It's been a while since we've had to worry about basic payment infrastructure on the internet. It seems like that's been a relatively solved problem, I guess, but we're increasingly given agents agency, as we've just talked about with Cursor there. I'm curious, Janet, for you, what are some, I guess, some other like human centric frameworks that are going to go from solve to shrug, particularly in security when we're talking about bringing agents in. I mean, obviously, we just had an example with Pocket OS there.
Yeah, I mean, excuse me. This is to me frightening on the surface, right? Because I think of the maturity of AI, agentic AI security, or maybe the lack of maturity there for because it's new. It's not because people are doing things wrong. It's just that we're figuring it out, as we talked about earlier. They claim that they're going to be able to, uh, prevent phishing. This framework that they're going to build is going to be able to prevent phishing and prevent takeovers. And I'm thinking like, how I'm not sure. I'm not confident in that. Right. I just feel like we haven't been able to do it to date. Why now? Why is this different? I don't know if we have anything that's. We have some human centric things that are in play, like that we might be able to improve on. If we want to fast forward and they say we get past this AI agentic AI payment thing and it works, such as insurance claim processing. I mean, I'm in the healthcare, so I think about that kind of thing. Maybe the administrative components of patient care, not the treatment part, of course, but things that get the patients in and processed and healthier and that kind of thing. So I think some of those things are ripe for this.
TC, what about you? What is do you see any kind of applicable lessons from here? And I mean, one of the things that I found troubling about this is basically the FIDO Alliance saying like we need to move super fast on this because no one is waiting for us. And that to me was like, I mean, Janet, to your point, was like that seems like an alarm bell moment for me. But I'm curious, TC, where's your mind at with this?
Yeah, I mean, I'll admit when I read it, it came off like a word salad. Right. And God bless the people that do this because I don't have the constitution for it. This very much sounds like a committee. And where I'm skeptical is by the time they figure it out, figure out whatever it is they're going to figure out. I honestly don't know if we're going to be there anymore. Right. Like the target, we're right now in a blow it up, tear it down, experiment, fall over phase. Right. So, like, what is the consumer's relationship going to be with AI agents? I don't think anybody can answer this right now. Whatever answer we give you is going to be different 2 months from now. So, whatever it is that they finally decide on and then build, by the time it arrives, I don't know if it's useful. I know for me, I've been thinking about hardening my own personal system, right? Because if we talk about risk management, there's my company. My company has a whole security team. My company has a whole IT team. We spend millions of dollars on security. Okay, me, my computer, my home attached to my bank account and my stocks and my family photos. No one is watching that except for me. So if I do something wrong and delete all my family photos, right? No one's there to catch me. So I've really been thinking about hardening my own system to enable agentic development, experimentation. And this is where I don't know if the FIDO Alliance people, again, God bless them, right? They're doing the hard work, but like, are they moving where people want to go? Or is this just a new version of shadow IT? I want my agent to make payments on my behalf. And you know what? I'm okay spending this much money and I'm okay if it goes sideways. I think there's people with that, where they're at, they're okay with that risk appetite. But for me, when it comes to, securing my own system, like I've moved to YubiKeys, and that's been a very painful experience. And one of the most painful things about it for me is what happens if I lose these? Because I misplace stuff all the time. And so I went to the FIDO Alliance website. I was searching around for wearable FIDO compliant devices. I want a lot. Why doesn't Apple Watch work as a YubiKey? What about a ring? What about a medallion? Like, how could I have something other than attached to my keychain that's just always on me that I don't need to fish out of my backpack or my pocket? That looked like a gap. I only found one ring that's on the market that's FIDO compliant, like YubiKey, and that they only have like ring size 8 and 11. Everything else is sold out. So it's I think I don't know. I could see like the real experimentation and like the thing that the market's going to want here. I think comes down to like how do you know that it's actually a human making this decision, and how can you make it easy for that human? And to me, like having a physical object that interacts with this authorization, that to me seems like a pretty good gate. So there's a lot of work to be done. I just don't know if they're pointed in the right direction.
That's a really great point. I didn't even think about the kind of the assumption, right, that the consumer adoption or desire for this, right, is
Yeah.
on like this linear curve or something like that. And I think it's very easy. I've been very much conscious recently of like my experience working in cybersecurity media, kind of using these systems because I need to know about them, so because to cover them in the space, right, is as I'm way deeper in this than probably most consumers are. And I think a lot of people in our industry are, in that the go to market for all of these in business is extraordinarily clear. For
Yeah.
businesses, for consumers, that is a completely open question that no one, like, people assume at some point there will be this market for this, but like, what people really like to do, it turns out, is shop.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and like, that's like a pastime for people. So maybe that's not something you want to hand off to agents. You show me the use case for it, I'm open to it. But yeah, I didn't even think about that, TC, of kind of like, are we solving a problem that might consumers might not even want? There might not be a consumer need for it. Now, admittedly, there's a lot of business purchasing that maybe this could be used for, and if we have these, intent systems figured out, I mean, that could completely change whole purchasing departments, and stuff like that. But I absolutely, yeah, that fantastic points, both of you, and I absolutely love this. And find the true, in our chat here. Administrative rights and responsibilities are going to be used, if not already. Probably not the best idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Find the true. I can't say I disagree with you. Yeah, good stuff there. We're gonna finish up here with a little GitHub drama. Uh, GitHub having a little bit of a rough stretch. I'm not gonna lie here. Here's kind of the security, the direct security angle here. Wiz Research disclosed a critical flaw in GitHub's internal Git infrastructure that allowed any authenticated user to achieve remote code execution on GitHub's backend servers with a single Git push command. Wiz discovered the vulnerability using an AI-powered reverse engineering tool. Hey, we fit AI into there, that analyzed closed source binaries, compressing what would have previously taken months into under 48 hours. GitHub patched cloud instances within 6 hours of the report, but at the time of the disclosure, 88% of on premise enterprise server deployments were still running vulnerable versions. And then this comes all on top of a whole lot of people talking about GitHub's reliability. Mitchell Hashimoto wrote about keeping a journal for a month, marking every day that GitHub had an outage that affected his ability to work. Nearly every day ended up with a mark. Really great blog post. We have a link to it in the show notes. Make sure to check it out. For a platform that functions as critical infrastructure for most of the software industry, that's a pattern definitely worth watching. TC, I'm going to start with you here. GitHub is one of those services we just assume will always be there, or we
Mhm.
build businesses on that. Certainly seeing some cracks at the moment. Which of these elements is giving you the most pause here?
Yeah, the part that's really surprising to me is just the number of, high profile tech industry, like you're seeing in the story, people reporting that it's just not available, right? Hey, I need to see what my open pull requests are. It's not working at 12 o'clock. It's not working at 6 or 7 o'clock. I went a whole day where I wasn't able to search for open pull requests so I can go ahead and do my work. And now this especially impacts like the open source community in terms of being able to, interact with all the different contributors rather than just, they all work at the same company. They're on Slack. I can just send you a direct URL because I'm blocked on this merge. So to me, the thing that's worrying here is if it's because of AI workloads, if it's because, I mean, the other thing is like GitHub doesn't have a CEO. They basically I think it's the COO and the CTO report to the, head of AI within Microsoft that runs like Copilot, right? I mean, to me, that's a recipe for disaster, right? First of all, Copilot is a joke. Second of all, they just don't have a CEO, right? So who's going to drive the accountability? It looks like there's a rot inside GitHub I mean, that's what we're hearing in the industry. That's why people are leaving. And so if we need to go to like a balkanization of Git, within the open source or within the broader tech community, that's going to bring a lot of challenges, but they're just not delivering on the core premise. Like, I need to do work. It needs to be working. I can't do my job because it's not working. Like the availability in the CIA triad isn't there. So what's going to happen because of that?
Janet, where are you at with GitHub issues here? Are you seeing the kind of those same things, or in your experience, or is the vulnerability more pressing for you?
Well, I don't have an X mark on every day of the calendar as bad as it was as the person in that
It's the
article
most
did. So I could
depressing
say it's
task tracker.
I know. He needs to track something more positive. I mean, the issue, this particular issue, today's issue with GitHub or whatever this news stories issue is, they were missing what input validation that enabled remote code execution, which is like, I don't know, isn't that the basic stuff to TC's point? Like where like how what's going on in there, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they've got the most secret, proprietary stuff that they're holding on to for companies, and this
Yeah.
is how it happened. I mean, kudos for Wiz, or maybe, AI comes to the rescue again. We talked about this earlier, right? AI is finding all these vulnerabilities, but I also do question the timeline a little too, which goes back to the same TC's point, right? Is Wiz found this in early March, and I don't think this, they say they pushed a fix to 2 hours, but I think it was like a month and a half and 2 hours. I think if I read the timeline right. So yeah, I think there's a problem, and I think it's maybe time for people to say this might not be the only solution. We might want to look at others. But
Yeah, and
I mean,
this has certainly not been or this is certainly not the first event that has caused the "I'm leaving GitHub" post. We
Yeah.
saw that, we
Yeah.
see it every couple of years. With anything with the community, you will always have some with a dominant platform like this. You'll always have some kind of, it's the "I'm leaving YouTube," but this seems to be based on some very legitimate availability issues in a way that we haven't seen before. And I'll just get on my soapbox here. As someone who spent years in IT media, I can't believe the amount of services that are in the AI adjacent space, and I'm talking Anthropic, OpenAI, GitHub.
Oh
When I
yeah.
look at their status pages and I'm seeing 1.9 of availability, I'm seeing 98% availability. Like,
Hmm.
that's insane to me, when for years we would be like, "Oh, this cloud service provider only has 5.9s." Like, that's insane. Like, we're
the bar's been
building.
lowered. Yeah.
Yes, like that. Like, I don't know when we decided that that was okay, but GitHub getting there is just so shocking to me. And I don't live in it every single day. Obviously, TC and Janet, you guys are both much more closer to that. But yeah, there definitely seems to be some smoke indicating perhaps some sort of conflagration that is maybe burning something. So, or
Well,
fire, as some people call
I think there's like levels, right? There's a burn down the old system, knock everything over, break all the walls, bring out all the toys and, burn ourselves, right? Like that's kind of AI, right?
it.
But then we're learning, we're like, well, wait a second. So, if we decide to go with all in on Claude and Anthropic, and it's regularly down, during working hours, and therefore we can't get our work done. What does that mean? So, for instance, I'm a big fan of Cursor. And so
Mhm.
with Cursor, when something's wrong with the Claude API, I can just, click a menu, switch to GPT, and
Yep.
take off. I'm doing just fine. I don't have to change anything. So thinking through, like, do we want to be able to build in that type of, remember multi-cloud? How
Oh, yes.
multi-cloud was
Oh,
going to be a
yes.
thing.
The
There's not a lot of
savior of
people like,
everything.
I don't
I
know
covered
anybody that
so
wants
many startups
multi-cloud.
that were gonna be the multi-cloud,
Yeah.
dashboard that was, yeah.
Yeah, no, no. We use multiple clouds for different things, but we don't
Mhm.
actually do the same thing in multiple clouds unless you're like big, big. It should be that for AI models. Should it be that for like CI/CD pipeline? Because if you're actually impacted by this, so like I think there was like what was it, 2,000 merges that appeared to have the record of them
Yeah.
disappeared, and so this could cause issues for you if you have customers relying on you. This could cause tons of losses or tons of downtime in a production environment. So, and you're going with GitHub, you're going with the big boys. So, what does it mean to build in that type of resiliency?
All right. Well, before we get out of here, we have to we're dealing with some heavy issues here, right? Some perhaps evolving and unresolved questions here. We're going to leave maybe with a little piece of positivity here. Uh Janet, do you have a piece of advice for our audience that you would like to share based on our conversation today? Something that maybe comes to mind here that we can leave our audience with.
Well, I kind of said it a few times during the talk. I think take advantage of these news stories and make sure your company, your internal company leadership is aware as much as you can, depending on your position, right? What's going on out there? And then because right now, like I said, we've got AI in the hands of everybody, and that's frightening, right? In some ways. So being aware, making your company aware.
I love that, and it allows me to plug. You should tell people to subscribe to Cybersecurity Headlines and listen every single day so you'll know the news stories as soon as they happen. TC, do you have anything else that I can plug as part of your advice or just good advice in general?
Oh, advice. Oh, I would say, I think there's 3 types of people in our industry right now. There's people that are AI resistant, there's people that are AI curious, and there's people that are AI enthusiasts. I would say get yourself in the AI enthusiast camp. It's happening, right? If you're AI curious, now's the time. If you're AI resistant, there just isn't room for you, honestly. And so we are hiring at Open Door. We have multiple roles open within my team, software engineer for financial systems, software engineer for security engineering. And I would say like the first couple questions are essentially culture tests in regards to AI. Tell me about your experience with AI tooling. And if you're telling me I don't trust it to run because it can't run, because it's not safe and it's not perfect and doesn't do as good a job as me, to me that's a user issue. That's a skill issue, right? If you ran into an issue with AI, what are you doing to solve it, right? How are you going to be able to get it to run reliably so that we can scale? So we are hiring. You can help me plug that. But in terms of advice, get yourself in the AI enthusiast camp. Get on the train.
I like it. I like it. Get on board or get out of the way. I'm TC. I'm
That's
feeling you. I'm feeling you. I'm feeling you. But I also enjoy that we can have useful discussions of where we are.
Yeah.
Like enthusiast doesn't mean reckless enthusiasm. Like to be clear, I think sometimes people get so excited that they're like, no, no, like we should be thoughtful of how we do this. And I think
Please.
that yes, please think about.
Pretty please.
Well, we accept a
All right.
lot of risks, all right? I mean, there's a lot of risks we accept. And so just
Yep.
knowing what the risk is. Hey, guess what?
Mhm.
We are depending on AWS. They go down, we're screwed. All right.
Well, Janet Hines, the CISO over at ChenMed, thank you so much for being on the show. I understand you have a new book out. Can you tell people about that and where they can
I
find it?
do. I actually have a copy I can show you. Yeah, go ahead, ask for it.
Ooh.
It's uh it's basically the system that I used in my career to get ahead, to progress, and it's all about making the ask. And it's available on Amazon, all formats. So there's my plug. Thanks, Rich.
Fantastic. Go check it out. We will have a link to that in the show notes as well. TC Nijakowski, head of IT and security over at Open Door. Where can people go if they want to check out what you're hiring for?
Yeah, Open Door Careers. We have it on our careers portal, or you could just message me on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. And make sure you're following them on LinkedIn. Both excellent follows. We'll have links to those in our show notes as well. Thank you also to our sponsor for today for helping make the show possible. A big thank you to Guard Square as well. And remember, you can send us feedback at CISOseries.com. Let us know if you're enjoying the show or what you thought about some of the coverage and some of the conversations we had. Remember to join us again next Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern for another edition of the Department of No. And be sure to register for our next Super Cyber Friday event coming up on May 8th, Hacking the End of Compliance. To register for the live show on YouTube and get more information on all of those, go to our events page at CISOseries.com. Thanks for joining us today. Have a great weekend. Stay secure out there. For myself, for our wonderful producer, Josh, for the big boss man, David Spark, and the rest of the CISO Series team, here's wishing you and yours to have a super sparkly day.
Cybersecurity headlines are available every weekday. Head to CISOseries.com for the full stories behind the headlines.